Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today let's have a look at the brand new version 1.1 for the Black Square TBM850 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So, the new update came out on the 19th of October. I do apologize for taking a little bit longer to feature this version for the very first time. That EFB release just came into the way straight away there. But let's have a look into the feature list of the new update, as there's quite some exciting stuff in there. We start with some major aerodynamic improvements, namely the control surface dimensions now match the POH values, increased stability in gusty or turbulent conditions, increased propeller drag for less floating, correct propeller beta angle and smoother torque, improved torque and ITT tables for more accurate performance, increased takeoff torque effects and accurate trim positions. Going down there, we've got some improved icing effect as well, and we now have functioning de-icing boots with the appropriate visual animation as well. Now, the next one I'm especially excited about, that's St. Elmo's Fire and Static Discharge. Now, St. Elmo's Fire happens when you're flying close to major weather systems and your airplane builds up some electrical charge, and that discharges, and then you get these really beautiful looking lightnings right on your window. I got a couple pictures from seeing that in real life, and I can tell you it's really amazing, and I am sure you will be able to see those in the sooner future as well. On top of that, we've been gifted with functioning wheel chocks, which we can now easily put in place and remove by clicking on the aft baggage compartment, something I'll show you in a few moments. Also in here, improved exterior lighting and new strobe lights, and that is the entire update. So with that, I suppose we have a look. We're going to fly on daylight over here because I want to show you some incredible airport to take the TBM into, right in the European Alps. But unfortunately that one doesn't have any night lighting, so we gotta do a daylight flight, which shall be sufficient however to check out most of our remaining functionality in the airplane. Okay then, so with that done, let's have a very quick look down here. We've got our chocks in place down here on the main wheels, and we can place or remove them by moving on to the aft cargo compartment, and you just click that click spot over here, and I can see chocks have been removed and are now stowed away safely in the aft baggage compartment. Those chocks actually do hold the plane in place regardless of the position of the parking brake, so that is something pretty cool to have in place there. Alright then, let's go ahead and close up and get our airplane flying. We are standing today at Echo Delta Mike Alpha, and we are going to fly to Locha Airport, on the way doing a traffic pattern before we go off, so that we can check the flight dynamics of the airplane a little bit more closely, and then later we are going to join IFR, fly over to Lima India Papa Bravo, where we're going to do low approach, cancelling our IFR, and then continuing VFR towards Locha. Sounds fun? I am absolutely sure it will be a blast flying this one over the next hour of time. In the meantime, we did prepare our Navigraph charts down here, but let's first of all go ahead and start up the airplane before we are going to talk about anything else. So, here we go then, very quick check that all our lights are working. Light test 1. Light test 2, and the ECS light test working as well. And obviously our master caution panel is working with both bulbs as well. Okay, very good. So we don't have any ATC online over here, so we are just going to run without getting clearance first, but just a quick reminder over here, with the battery off, like that, we can fire up just the COM1, respectively. In our case, that's the GTN 750 up here. Alright, but we don't need that for today's startup clearance. Alright, very cool. So let's go ahead. Battery can come on, ignition going on to auto, strobe lights on as a replacement for the non-existing beacon on this airplane. Then the fuel selector onto auto. Let's see, it's on the left tank right now. Let's press the shift button, and now it's on the right tank. Very good. That's exactly what we expect to see. Okay, aux boost pump going on, fuel pressure is building up, very good, and then for the rest of it, the entire anti-icing systems down there are off, landing gear lever is down, and that's it. Okay then, Flaps are up, and then the man override lever is in. Cutoff, power lever, idle, max RPM, and the condition levers are cut off. Alright, looks like we are good to go for the engine start. So, fuel pump is running. Let's go ahead and engage that starter. NG is increasing. Oil pressure coming up. %, NG. Mixture in low idle. Engine starts running up. Let's watch the temperatures. Make sure they don't exceed any limits. But this is looking very good now. %, NG. Starter can come off. The engine has reached the self-sustaining RPMs. And the mixture is going into high idle over here. Alright, very good. So that is a successful engine start. Oil pressure is checked. We did that earlier already. So let's go ahead with the remainder of our startup procedures. Turn on the gyros, nav lights. EFIS can come on. So then, the left HRS is selected. Autopilot trim master on, radio master on. Bleed air auto, air conditioning going on, and the fan flow in auto. Cruising flight level today is going to be flight level 290, but before we do that, we quickly got to do a single traffic pattern over here. Maybe two, depending on how well the airplane is landing now. So that is on our minds as well. Then let's have a quick look into the flight plan. We are departing Augsburg towards Bolzano. So, Echo Data Mike Alpha. Yeah, not the charts yet, but rather we want to load the procedures. And we're going to depart following the Maisach 6 Foxtrot departure, which we've got in here of runway 09, or runway 07 I should say. Then from Maisach, Yankee 161 to Manal. That one. Then going on Mike 736 ECPEP. Here we go. From there we continue Yankee 108 towards Alizzi. Like this, and we end up at Lima India Papa Bravo. Bolzano Airport. Alright, so that's our initial route of flight inserted over here. Then let's see, Squawk, well it's going to be IFR, so it's going to be Squawk 2000, and the flight ID down here is November 330 Delta Romeo. That is what air traffic control is going to see on their screen from your flight. Alright then, we are going to leave the GNS 530 as it is, only going to use this one as a radio, so we'll tune 1 to 1.5. Like so. Alright, and that's basically our flight preparation done. Transponder can come on. And a quick look into the aircraft state. The engine is still at 100%, and I don't think we've got any active failures. No, we don't. So the airplane is in a good shape. Alright, very good. So, flaps down to takeoff, and with that we are ready to go. So they said the torque dynamics have been changed quite significantly, so let's have a look into how this airplane is going to behave. And before we do that, quick check on the winds over here, even though I did check them before the flight, but let's just be sure. So that's Augsburg Airport, weather data, none available. Okay, that's a pity. But it's fine, the wind is from about 090 degrees-ish, so it's a clear case for runway 07. Okay, so park and brake off. Taxi light on. Let's give this a go. I do apologize in advance to this little gentleman over there. I don't think we will be able to clear him completely. Nah, might just about, maybe, with a bit of luck. Alright then, left and right are clear. And this looks alright to me. So QNH is 1013 indeed, today. Just in case you're wondering why I'm not changing this. So, aux boost pump, forgot that one after engine start. We can set this up to the auto position, but we're going to do full systems check and full run up at the runway anyway, to ensure that our airplane is indeed fit for the flight we intend to carry out. Something I really like about small aircraft like this is how quickly and easily you can prepare them for flight. You could see we barely took a minute or so in order to get ourselves ready here by the time we actually started the startup procedure, and that simplification is really amazing. I mean, this is quite a complex airplane, but it's built in such a nice manner from the airplane manufacturer, that is, and also simulated by Black Square, have to say that as well, that we really don't need to worry about too many things. Okay then, let's taxi that thing up over here, slightly turn it and stop in the turn in order to conduct our run-up. So park and brake is set. We're going to start with a couple of systems check to give the engine a little bit more warm-up time. So first things first, landing lights are working. Then, going down here a little bit, let's check the anti-ice system. We're going to start with the inertial separator. Do you hear that low rumbling sound in the background? That's the inertial separator moving into position right there. Right, in the meantime, note on the master caution panel we've got the pitot heaters and the stall heaters, so let's turn those on and observe the lights going off. So they're observed working, and we're gonna keep them on since we're about to take off anyway. About 30 seconds after flicking the inertial separator switch, the inertial separator is on as well. Then let's go ahead and check windshield heat is working, prop de-ice is working. Now comes the airframe anti-ice. Let's watch those boots in action. So, there we've got him. Okay, that's the left side working, then let's see the right side working in a few moments. Did I switch it off accidentally? No. So let's add a little bit of power. I do believe you need like 80% NG or so for it to work. Here we go. And also it does take a little bit of time in between the cycles of the boots, so that is somewhat expected over here. Alright, tell you what, let's turn that thing off and on again. And here we go. The boots are working. Okay, very good. So, can switch that one back off again. Then let's have a quick look into the pressurization system. Cabin altitude is set down to our field elevation right now, as we want to do a traffic pattern before we go to head out for our flight. And all of that stuff is fitting, so the system seems to work just fine. Then let's go ahead and quickly set that altitude buck down to our field elevation. Like so. And now let's proceed with the engine run-up. So we're looking for a prop RPM of 1900, and that will equate to something in the region of about an NG of just about 80. Here we go, that was a little bit too much power, slightly reducing my power lever to bring the RPMs down to 1900. Looks good, okay then. So, prop is feathering just fine. Pull that one to the front once again. Prop RPMs coming back up, should go to 1900 again, and now we can do the governor test. That knob is hidden down here, so I'm just changing my point of view so that you can actually see it. Here we go. Governor pressed, we lose between 50 and 250 RPMs down there. Governor released, and we're getting those RPMs back. Alright. So that is the run-up completed. Then let's do a very quick briefing of the IFR part of the flight we intend to do. Mysaf 6 Foxtrot departure is down here on a chart, and we can see it straight at and then simply right turn out towards Mysaf. Initial climb 4000, and that is selected up here. And for the waypoints themselves from runway 07, let's compare that real quick. We've got initially 2000 feet, then Mike Alpha 031, maximum 200 knots, and that's 031 up there, and thereafter we go to Mysaf VOR. Alright, last thing we can do over here, let's quickly tune Mysaf VOR active. 15.2, here we go, and then we can enable that one on our screen as well. This is in GPS mode already, perfectly as we need it, and with that our briefing is completed. Alright, cool, so we're pretty much done. Let's go ahead and turn on, or rather turn off the parking brake, turn on our lights, and off we go. Weather radar coming on, transponder going into alt mode. So my first impression on the new propeller track with the 1.1 update is that the beta range indeed seems to produce a little bit less power, and the airplane is a little bit easier to control on the ground now. Previously it used to accelerate all the time. Now when you really pull the power lever into the beta range, it seems to have a little bit less power and doesn't accelerate that much. Alright, so that much for the first impression. Now let's go ahead and get going for our traffic pattern. Okay, timer. Oh, I just wanted to get rid of the yoke. Looks like the slipstream from the propeller is so strong that the elevator actually is effective already. So, power set. 80 knots, slightly changed ground behavior here, as you could see. Had a little bit problems the very first takeoff to actually control it. So, positive climb, gear up. But I'm sure that was just due to the very first attempt at controlling it there. It didn't feel overly too bad, so I'm sure that with a bit more practice, we'll be able to get that under control easily. Okay, flaps up. Yaw damper on. Taxi light off. 130 knots, looks good. Let's climb to 1,000 feet above field level. And then we can start our left-hand turn. Okay then, power back, 1000 AGL. It's just about good for our traffic pattern. Let's not get too fast, 150 is more than sufficient. And then try to somehow stay clear of all the houses we have over here. Alright. Very first impression of the airplane flying over here. The flight controls did seem to get a little bit more direct, but if you look at this, I can control the airplane pretty fine there. As always, Microsoft Flight Simulator, the coordination between ailerons and rudder is a little bit of a problem. I just can't seem to center that ball entirely. But, well, that is a known Microsoft Flight Simulator problem, so I'm not gonna go too much into that. Okay then. On the downwind position, let's go flaps takeoff. Ew, look at that nose shooting up. Quite some ballooning effect there. And gear down. Taxi light coming on. Right, let's not overfly the city. And flaps into the landing position. Alright, over the river looks like a good base position for me. So, where's the field? There it is. So, landing checklist. Gear down, flaps down, yaw damper off, lights on, landing checklist complete. We're at a rather lightweight today. Only 50% fuel, two people on board, so we can approach at 80 knots final approach speed today. Ooh, a little bit lagging over there. And some stutters. Not sure where exactly those came from now, if the sim tried to load something or if it was the airplane. But let's see on our successive remainder of the flight if we get any more of these. Right, turning final. Again, the plane feels very naturally controllable. If you look at that, it's the very first time I'm flying with this update, but you can see that I can control the airplane very precisely. So that does look quite good to me. It just feels natural. It feels like an airplane does. Certainly an airplane of this size. Very direct to react to your inputs, but very well controllable and precisely flyable. Alright, let's see the flare. They said the flare is going to be less floaty now because of increased drag. And, well, I can still float it somewhat, but I do believe it's reduced a little bit. Okay, so flaps back to the takeoff position. Trim, we're gonna leave as it is. Set power. Rotate. Positive climb. Gear up. At 110 knots we can retract the flaps and then we are going to continue along for our IFR flight. So, flaps going up. 130 knots climb speed. And then we need to as well select our cruising level on the cabin pressure controller so that the cabin actually starts going up. We're going to fine-tune that a little bit later. For now, suffers to get the cabin climbing. Okay, so let's go. Flight director on, nav mode, speed mode. And then the flaps are retracted. Let's go to the 850 mode. Adding that extra power that this airplane has. Going up to a torque of 121.4. Like that. Okay, 1000 to go, but let's assume that air traffic control has cleared us up higher now. We can go all the way to flight level 290. Like that, looks good. So I'd say we are well on the way. Still need quite a bit of right aileron input, as you can see, in order to maintain wings level over here. But that does seem to be expected, seeing that we've got a single engine over here, and that the forces of the propeller rotating are necessarily going to have their effect on the airplane and rotate the airplane as well. Overall, I'm going to continue with a little bit of hand flying here, just to get a bit of an impression on how the airplane feels and how it feels throughout the flight envelope. Right, so taxi light can go out. We didn't use the pulse lights, but that is alright. After all, no airplane I've ever flown actually had one. Alright, so let's go ahead and accelerate a little bit. Let's go to vertical speed mode. Let's do 1000 feet a minute and see how accurate that flight director actually gets. Zoom in a little bit. So I'm doing 1000 feet a minute right now for the acceleration, and I'm looking for a speed of 170 knots, which gets us a little bit nicer of a climb speed than we previously had at 130. 130 is the optimal climb speed and the one published by the airplane manufacturer. However, I did find 170 is a very good compromise between achievable rate of climb and between what your airplane does as a forward ground speed. So, something that's changed with the update as well is that the torque is now reducing a little bit quicker with increasing altitude. Previously, that used to be a little bit too little, so let's just keep an eye on that. I'm not touching the power lever in any way over here. Alright, reached 170 knots. Let's go speed hold mode once again. Look at that flight director, it's really accurate and precise. That's how they are in real life. Makes it very easy to fly on them. Alright, so for the control behavior, as I mentioned earlier, my first impression basically seems to hold over here. The plane is very nicely controllable, and it reacts in a way how I would expect it to react. As you can see, small inputs give us some sort of reaction from the plane. Also small trim inputs. Watch the trim indicator down there, while at the same time looking out the window. I'm trimming a little bit nose up now. Not giving any elevator input right now. You can see a little bit of trim up. That's the reaction of the plane. A little bit of trim down. That's the reaction of the plane. So overall, very nice to trim out. Very nice to control in the way how you would like it to be, to fly the airplane precisely. So that's pretty much all we can ask for. Okay then, so I think we've flown enough manually. Let's see how the autopilot handles things. Autopilot is engaged. Letting go of the controls, and you can see it's immediately picking up on it and taking its fair share of the work. 1,700 feet a minute rate of climb while we are maintaining 170 knots is what I mentioned earlier. A good compromise between ground speed and rate of climb that you can get out of the plane. Also a quick look at the torque. I had it at 120 when we started the climb at about 1,500 feet. Or let's make it 3,000. That's down a little bit more. So that actually seems reasonable to me. Alright though. Let's see what the outside air temperature is. It's 0 degrees right now. We're about to go into some clouds. So, for the sake of experiment, I'm going to keep the anti-ice off. The only one that we have on right now is the pitot install heaters. But I'm going to keep the windshield and the prop de-ice off. Well, I'll tell you what. The prop de-ice I'll turn on, but I want that windshield anti-ice off, so that we actually see the ice forming on our windshield, so that we can do a little experiment here with the de-icing boots to see how well or not that is going to work out. So I'm intentionally flying into the clouds right now unprotected. Again, never do that in real life, but for the sake of flight simulation and experiment over here, I am going to do that. Alright, so torque has reduced even further. It's at like 116 now. I am going to add a little bit of power to keep the torque running up. Here we go. Keep it close to the limit so that we get best possible climb performance. That's like 121 now. All that we want. Okay, looks very good. So, climb to flight level 290. Still takes us a little bit of time to get into the clouds, but look at that. Ice is starting to form on the windshield already. Unfortunately, nothing outside on the wings yet, but let's wait a little bit and see what we can get. I'm gonna leave the windshield anti-ice off right now, just so that we can see the effect in action and so that we can see what's happening. Looking out to the right, it looks like we are indeed flying through a little bit of the outmost part of the cloud, so that icing seems to be realistic right now. Now, I might be mistaken, it does look like there is a little bit building up on the leading edge of the wing, just down here. However, that might be a reflection as well, not 100% sure. But on the right-hand wing, over here it surely looks a bit more like a reflection. Normally icing would happen symmetrically on the airplane. It doesn't really happen that you have one wing in the cloud, the other not. Okay. So, getting a bit out of the cloud right now. I would hope that a little bit more ice would be building up here. But tell you what, first of all, we want to do a little experiment with the anti-icing here. You see that little knot down there? If that is turned all the way to the left to the defog, then that might help a little bit de-icing the actual windows of the airplane as well. Basically what we're doing now is we are blowing warm air towards the windshield, and that should have a little bit of a de-icing effect on the windshield, though not as strong. Pretty similar to what you are aware of from your car, and as I'm sure you're aware, you can't usually de-ice the entire window just through blowing warm air at it, so you normally go out and scratch the ice. However, let's just keep this running a little bit for now, and let's also go ahead and turn on the airframe de-ice. So that's the boots pumping out on the outer side, And it looks indeed to me like that little part that we thought was icing is actually vanished. And that is how it would work. Well, this might actually be a reflection as well. Might be that we didn't really see icing on the leading edge of the wing. In any case, the way those boots work is the ice that's frozen onto the leading edge of your wing is simply being blown apart by the boot expanding the surface below, therefore breaking the ice, cracking it, and then the ice simply flies away to the back of the plane. That's how de-icing boots work, compared to the thermal de-icing that we're using on airliners, which heats up the leading edge until the icing simply melts off. For that reason, boots are normally turned on and off in cycles, so we can just turn it off right now as well. Alright, and look at that, the front of the windshield is slowly starting to clear up, as we are still using the defogging over here, so the windshields are now clear again, even without using the windshield anti-icing system. That's actually a feature. In the little bit more complete description of how the ECS system works over here in the TBM, Black Square did go ahead and say that, yeah, the way we do this is that if you turn that knob down here all the way to the defog position, then that works simulated internally as a bit of de-icing position, but with a low power running onto it. But that's how it works internally. So, as you can see, that worked just about perfectly. Alright then, so, doing 1,200, 1,300 feet a minute right now. So not climbing too quick, but then again, we've got another 10,000 feet to run. I'm wondering if I should just increase the rate of climb a little bit to out-climb that little puff of cloud over there. But then again, I'm hoping, this time, let's turn on the windshield heat so that our windshield doesn't ice up. And maybe we can get our wings to build up a little bit more ice so that we can see the de-icing effect in action as I wanted to show you earlier. In any case, we have one more thing to do, and that is prepare our flight onwards towards Locher. So, first of all, again, part of the update, you can see the torque is still decreasing as we're gaining altitude. Let's add a little bit more power. But we've just reached the most forward position of the power lever, so you can see that with the inertial separator extended, we are unable to gain maximum power right now. Once we're clear of the area of predicted icing, we can stow away the inertial separator, we can close it, and then we're going to get more power available. That is the threat that I warned you about all the time, that when you do that, torque is going to increase, and it is going to increase past the red line if you're too close to it when you're not monitoring it correctly. Alright, so we want to do a few things now. Let's see. Our destination airport, Locher, does not have its own ICAO code. So basically, it is located somewhere in here. As you can see, nothing down here in the map on our GNS. So what we got to do is we are going to create that waypoint artificially in our GPS in a moment. So let's go ahead and do that now. A typical source for that kind of data would be, for example, SkyVector. However, with unlisted airport, we cannot be sure that SkyVector actually has them. But let's take a quick moment and have a look to see if we can find Locher in SkyVector. So, while we're still climbing, let's quickly switch over to here, and we're going to search for Locher. But you can see, not existent in SkyVector. We can have a quick look into the en route chart and see if we might be able to find it on here, but I don't really think so, and as you can see, there is nothing in here. We might as well obviously go there just visually, but that would be a little bit too easy. So we will just about have to go via the GPS position. Now that one we can easily Google, luckily, so from the GPS position we can then create the waypoint. in our GNS, and that is what I'm going to show you in a moment. Just quickly, actually gotta find it, because there are several different sources over the internet, but I do believe we've got it over here now. Alright, so let's have a quick look. Also, we're outside of the icing conditions now, so I'm gonna close the inertial separator. And with that off, watch our torque increase. And we are monitoring this now to make sure that this doesn't actually increase beyond the limits. Again, the inertial separator is slowly closing. You can see our thrust increase. And here we reach the red line, so I'm reducing my power lever now in order to prevent the torque from going above the limit. It takes about 20 seconds or so until that is completed. In the meantime, we are going to create our Locher airport. So we are going to go into here, create waypoint, and we are going to identify this one as Locher. Like that. It is an airport, and we're going to define it by a latitude and longitude. So let's go with this. Locher is actually located at 463602 north. So that's going to be north 463602. And it's east 0112248. So east 0112248. Enter. This is not a temporary one. And that should be it. Location in Italy seems to be grossly correct. So our error check looks good. Let's hit create. And that general location looks about fine to me. Down there is Bolzano. This is where Locher is located. Looks very good. Cool. So with that inserted, we might as well go into the flight plan. And at the very end, we can add our star. And after that, we can then add our continuous routing to Locher. Just be aware that the GPS you might be using may not be very happy if you insert something behind an arrival. So be careful when you do this. For our case, we're going to start right here on the approach charts. So, arrivals. That's a lovely Italian chart over there. Right, we're coming in from Alise, so it's going to be via Alise towards Fora. And then let's have a quick look what we've got out of Fora for the approaches. Log DME guided. Tell you what, let's do an RMP approach for cloud breaking runway 01. That looks about good to me. So starting down at Fora as well, and then leading us all the way up here for arrival. Alright. So let's have a look. Arrival. We've got the Alise 2 hotel arrival, and we can load that one in, and then we are going to fly out of that. Load procedure, approach, and it's going to be an on-off approach runway 01 with a transition from Fora. Load that up. Perfect, here we go. So that's approach completely entered, and that's it. So after the missed approach, I'm now going to add Locher, which we have just created. Here we go. And that is basically our routing completed then for the entire on-off approach at our destination airport. So, quite easy to do, isn't it? Also, we can see that our rate of climb is now slowly dropping. It's like 800, 900 feet a minute right now. Quick look outside. No ice attached to the airplane, so it's not like we're getting a bad rate of descent because of ice buildup. That is something that we always need to have an eye on when flying an airplane like this. But it's still climbing nicely at 900 feet a minute. We've just got 4,000 to go, so we're going to be there in like 4.5 minutes. Just be aware that we created the Locher waypoint only in the database of the GTN 750 right now. It's not available in our GNS 530, unfortunately. Now, down here, obviously we could just go to the cursor, or at least we could if that was supported. Looks like it actually isn't in the working title GNS 530, which is a bit of a pity, but you get where this is going. Okay then, so very quick look over here into the utilities, trip planning, and we can take our present position towards our destination, just 18 minutes en route. So we might as well stop the climb at flight level 270 here, or we might just continue all the way up. It's just going to be a very short cruise, but with a bit of luck I can show you a nice little feature of the airplane there. Actually, with a bit of luck I might be able to show it now, but looks like not yet. So when we're climbing into the higher flight levels, then the air conditioning system is going to need additional bleed due to the difference between the outside air temperature and our cabin internal temperature. So if we look over here, we can see it's minus 33 degrees centigrade on the outside right now. Also might just turn off these de-ices there, relieve the electrical system a bit. So you can see it's minus 33 degrees on the outside. Oh, bits of turbulence it looks like, but not a surprise. 55 knots of winds over the Alps over here. So we will surely have a couple of mountain waves that we're flying through. So if that rate of climb varies a little bit, then that is totally fine for us. Okay, so the thing that we just want to check on is the cabin temperature. We can see right now it's still 22 degrees centigrade. However, when we get up into the really cold air masses, then the environmental control system might not be able to actually control the temperature anymore. You can see it right now, it's dropping to 21 degrees already, and it might be dropping even further as our flight goes on. So in case that actually happens, we are going to switch the environmental control system to the bleed high mode, and that way we are going to lose a little bit of engine power, but we will have more air available for the air conditioning, and it will be able to control the cabin temperature in the climb once again. I really like these small little features of the Black Square aircraft, something that set them apart from a lot of the third-party stuff we have on the flight simulator market. Right then, quick look down here, that's Locha down there, and that is our airport. So, let's have a very quick look. Weather data. No weather data available. Okay, well that's a pity. I really thought it would be. In any case, a couple nice features that we've got on the GTN there. The first is the visual approach button. You click that, it simply draws you an extended centerline, and you will get some sort of an RNAV approach guidance, like you'd have for a normal RNAV approach, in order to fly your visual approach with that. Apart from that, quick look into that destination airport's location or elevation is in 800 feet. However, Locha is located a little bit higher, like 2,000 feet. So on the ECS we're going to set a cabin altitude at 2,000 for the descent. And then on the approach, the latest weather I had before this departure was that we got few clouds at an altitude of 5,000 feet, so the cloud breaking should go pretty quick. Then we just level off in like 3,000 or so and continue VFR towards Locha. While looking into that, we can as well have a quick look into the VFR area chart that we've got around the area, since we will be flying the last part VFR. Also, we've got 1,000 to go up here. So let's have a quick look. We want the VFR maps. That's the approach we're going to fly down here, and we end up in the control zone of Bolzano. That's from the ground, class Charlie airspace. No, sorry, class Golf airspace from ground to 6,500. Now, class Golf is a bit surprising, see that we've got IFR traffic down there, but welcome to Italy, I suppose. And then Locha is located just about up here, so on that way over. Let's see what that larger airspace is, a delta from level 165 onwards. Normally at the Alps it's class Echo airspace below level 130 or class Golf airspace, so I suppose there is nothing in our way that would prevent our VFR navigational part over there. Okay, cool, so that's it. Right, what have we got here? That's the light on the altimeter up there. Let's have a very quick look in the product manual if that is some sort of a failure that we're encountering here, or if that is just the altitude capture light. Might be as well. Let's wait until we've leveled off at 29,000. Yeah, that's out again. Probably just the approaching altitude approach warning. That is something that any airplane certified for RVSM operation, like this one is, must have, so that's probably just the altitude alerter then. should come on at about between 700 and 900 feet to your cleared altitude, and when you're deviating from it, should come on at about 300 feet, if I do remember my ATPL theory correctly. Which I'm in no way implying I am, by the way. Not on these kind of things. Alright, so we reach our cruising altitude, 29,000. Let's go ahead and reduce our prop RPM a little bit. This is not in the manual, but I've seen a lot of real-life TBM pilots do this in their videos, so I suppose we might do it as well. Okay, 1900 RPMs makes things a little bit more silent up here. And looking at our speed, we are still running fine. 180 knots indicated. Let's see what that is in true airspeed. We've got all that stuff down here. So use sensor data, please. True airspeed right now, 290 knots looks quite good to me. Alright then, let's have a look into our VNAV planning. So, 10,000 feet at 4R, and we're looking at a vertical speed target of 2,000 feet a minute. That's what we've got in manual. Means our top of descent is 12.5 minutes away. At the same time, let's go trip planning. Have a look over here once again. This one says estimated time en route is just about 10 minutes and a bit, but I do believe that is direct to the destination field. Even though this one has point-to-point enabled. Okay, let's go flight plan. P+2. Okay, again, this is not following along a route. This is just, once again, direct to those points, I believe. But let's have a quick look. Let's see. We're looking at 4R. And this is now 20 minutes away. Top of descent, 12 minutes. And we want to go down 19,000 feet at 2,000 feet a minute, giving us just under 10 minutes. So this actually seems to be along the flight plan now. Even though it's interesting seeing that it shows lag present position to 4R. But I suppose that is going to work for us as well. So while we do that, let's have a look into the approach chart. And we are going to take that one up here. Okay, give me that full chart, please. Final approach track offset by 11 degrees from the runway centerline. That's fine with us. We are well aware. What do we have down here? Remark, one engine out, approach or rejected bulk landing at night not allowed. Well, we only have a single engine, so that's not really going to impact us. Looking at the remarks, closely monitor the lateral trajectory in proximity to the missed approach point in order to be ready to change the flight guidance to a heading mode or manual flight at or before the missed approach point if visual conditions are achieved. If visual conditions are not achieved, climb must be established without delay when passing the missed approach point. Okay, that's the basic law for any non-precision approach, so we are totally happy with that. Apart from that, what else do we have there? Surely should be a minimum somewhere on here. That's our distance altitude table. Hopefully won't need that, as we should have guidance. Okay, here we go. So LNAV minimum, missed approach climb gradient 5.2%. We are well able of that. 2,750 is going to be our minimum. So let's go ahead and set that altitude back. 2,750. Like so. Overall, I expect to be clear of the clouds by 5,000 feet the latest. So we should be able to commence our approach rather soonish. Something to take care of over here. It's a 5.5 degree glide at the end. So if we have a look at the table over here and the vertical speed required versus ground speed, we're not going to approach all the way down at approach speed, but rather we're going to fly a little bit faster since we only intend to fly the approach for some cloud breaking. So if we do like 160 knots, we already have 1,300 feet a minute down here. So that is something that we definitely need to take into consideration. We expect to break clear of the clouds at 5,000 feet above ground, so that is just about between 5 and 6 miles. Keep in mind this is altitude, AGL, and weather or cloud data is always given above field elevation in the META. So if the META sets few clouds 5,000 feet, then we actually have that above the field elevation of 800, so few clouds in 5,800 feet above the ground level. Alright, that should be about all that we need down here, so I do suppose we are running fine with that. Let's quickly run a cross-check here between the data on the charts and the data in our FMS. So we've got 912 above 7,000, 913 5,600, 914 4,500. If we compare that with our flight plan route, 912, 7,000, 913, 5,600, 914, 4,500. Alright, and we've got the missed approach point at 819 down here as well. So that looks quite good to me. 4 at 10,000 as well for the beginning of the approach. So I would say we are completely happy with what we got in the FMS now. And we can start our approach like that. Alright. So, one other look at the temperatures. And here we've got exactly the effect that I predicted. So, the outside air temperature is now what? Minus 38 degrees centigrade down there. So, with minus 38 degrees centigrade, and the bleed not in the high position, the airplane is not capable of maintaining cabin temperatures. So the best it can give us now is 16 degrees centigrade. Let's turn the bleed to the high position, and we will shortly... Well, first of all, we somewhat hear it in the background. We can, or at least I could swear we could. I'm just going to shut up for a moment so that you guys can listen to it yourselves. I could swear I can hear the bleed air running up a little bit, with a little bit more pressure through the ducts after we set this to the high position. It might just be me imagining things, but look at the cabin temperature. It's now 17 degrees and it is going to rise, and I'm sure that in a minute or two we're going to see this back up at the 22 degrees that we've commanded with the cabin temperature knocked down here. Alright, so that is pretty much our look at the ECS completed. That is our approach preparation completed. So we can shortly go ahead and start our descent towards Locho, or rather towards Bolzano, and thereafter break out towards Locho. Another thing that I quickly want to have a look at is the engine monitor down here. So we can get all kind of engine data down here. I'm sure you're familiar with that by now. If you're not, then I can absolutely recommend you to have a look into the manual. This is what I've been looking for. Inspection due in so many flight hours. Now, we've just updated the TBM from version 1.0 to version 1.1. As you can see, it retained all the flight hours I had. So it retained those like 17 hours that I've flown the airplane beforehand, even through the update of the airplane. That's a question that I'm being asked quite a bit, like, hey, what about my flight record and what about my history with the plane? Well, the good news is all of that is actually being retained. Okay then, I suppose we don't need all of that stuff, though let's have a quick look at the nav page. Previously, the airplane, or the engine trend monitor at least, could not get us that information to the destination, but looks like that has not been part of the update quite yet. Another thing to be careful of, have a look at the ITT over here. 840 is the limit for max continuous operations. We're at 836 right now. So if the outside conditions change so that our ITT increases, we might be over-temperating our engine. Is that a word, over-temperating? I don't know. But look at the temperature, 19 degrees and rising. But let me quickly try something. Let's put the bleed back to the auto position. And look at that. It actually has an effect on the ITT of the engine. That's what I just love about the Black Square aircraft. Everything is involved with one another. In any case, back to high bleed. Overall, we care about the cabin temperature more than we care about the engine temperatures, for as long as the engine temperature remains within its normal operating range. But you can see how we're really maxing it out right now. Alright, something else. Air data. That is a page that I like particularly in the engine trend monitor. And if we go down here, flight timer is a very useful tool. Even though we've got different flight timers in here, like in the transponder we've got one as well. Then obviously we started the timing ourselves when we took off. And the other one that I really like down here is this one, which gives you the only indication of your Mach number in flight. So you can see we're flying true airspeed 299 knots right now. The maximum would be achievable at a little bit lower of an altitude, around flight level 240, where we can get it to 310 knots. But 299 is a quite good result up here as well, and we are doing Mach 0.5. Why is it so important that we've actually got an indicator of a Mach number? Well, in many airspaces worldwide, the upper airspace starts at flight level 245. Now, you can see we don't have a Mach indicator up here. However, in upper airspace, speeds are expressed in Mach number and not in indicated airspeeds. For that reason, it is quite important for us that we've got our Mach number available somewhere in case air traffic control wants to know how fast we're going or wants to assign us a certain speed. Now, normally we're flying at altitudes over here which are below the airliners, so we shouldn't have problems with somebody overtaking us at Mach 0.8. However, it's always something to have in your mind that you might get a speed restriction, and if you do, then it will be given as a Mach number, and down here is where you've actually got that available in the engine trend monitor. Obviously, there are a lot more functions associated with it. We'll think like our gross weight, like the time, and so on. So lots of things available in here, and I can really recommend you to have a close look at that engine tram monitor and find your way around it. It is really a useful tool when flying that TBM. Alright, so let's see where our top of descent is. We've got it on the chart up there, coming up in 12 nautical miles, and if we go to the VNAV page, then we can see 2.5 minutes to our top of descent, so we are almost there already. Let's spend the last 2 minutes at our cruising level to think ahead of what is going to come and what we might be doing on that approach. So, first of all, when we initiate the descent, we're going to select our cabin altitude down to the approximate field elevation of Locher, which is roughly 2,000 feet. And, well, we could certainly turn those lights off. I was just about talking about when we're going to turn them on, because we're going to turn them on a little bit earlier in the descent here. We're going to enter Class Echo airspace from about flight level 130, so at flight level 130 we're going to turn on our landing light and switch them to the pulsing, to the pulse light straight away. That is going to make us visible a little bit better to everything that's flying around the Alps, and looking at how beautiful the weather is over here, I wouldn't be surprised if there are a couple of gliders flying around, if there is some VFR traffic navigating through the mountains, and if there are loads and loads of birds flying there as well. And a bird certainly is the last thing that we want to hit today. Well, maybe an aeroplane is the last, with a bird being second to last, but you get where I'm going with this. Alright, so let's have a very quick look into what we can watch out for on our descent then. So, few things that have been added in the new 1.1 update. Going over the change log once again, major aerodynamic improvements over here include control surface dimensions now match the POH values, and we've seen already that the airplane reacts very nicely when we're flying. Right, that was our alert, and you can see down here, top of descent is coming in 1 minute time. So, on top of that, we have increased stability in gusty or turbulent conditions. That is something that we might very well experience on our way into Bolzano and later Locher, since we are going to fly through the valleys, and you can see the sun is shining, it's heating up one side of the valley stronger than the other, which is inevitably going to create some vertical wind current inside the valley. And therefore turbulence is to be expected down there, so let's see how the airplane is actually going to behave when that happens. Alright, before we continue with the changelog, let's go ahead and enable our descent. We're going to start at 15,000 initially, keeping us outside of Class Echo airspace and keeping us at or above the MSA, which is exactly 15,000. So, vertical speeds 2,000. And down we go. Leaving our cruising level, let's also set our cabin pressure down, looking for 2,000 feet altitude as our destination field elevation. Here we go. And we certainly can reduce that rate of descent a bit. We don't need to descend at 1,000 feet a minute here. Also, since we are now descending, we can switch the bleed back to the auto position, since we'll be in warmer air masses very soon, and therefore we'll have less problems actually pressurizing and temperating our air. Still don't know if that's a word, but that's about fine. Okay, so having a continued look into our changelog, while also having a look at the speed, by the way, 230 knots is the speed that we're looking for in the descent, so we don't want to exceed that. Apart from that, in our changelog, we've got increased propeller drag for less floating, correct propeller beta angle and smoother torque, improved torque and ITT tables for more accurate performance, and increased torque effects and accurate trim positions. So the one that we're looking forward to the most over here is the increased propeller drag on our descent. We're going to try that in a few moments, when we'll just, for the sake of it, pull the power back to idle and see what kind of reaction we're getting out of the airplane. Obviously that's not something that you're supposed to do when you're flying a plane like this, but I just want to do it for the sake of the fun of it. Also notice I needed to pull back on the torque already, so if I'm just returning my power levers to the maximum, you will see that they are about to exceed the limit, as we are descending into lower air, and therefore the torque is increasing as the air density is increasing. So in the descent, be sure to keep an eye on the torque, as that is something that's been newly added to the TBM with the latest update. Also, we're about to reach 230 knots of indicated airspeed, which we are going to maintain on the way down. Very quick look of our speed in the descent now. 337 knots true airspeed, Mach 0.55. Okay, so just for the fun of it, I'm going to reduce engine power all the way to minimum now. That is going to trigger the landing gear warning, but I want to see how strong the reaction of the airplane is. So here we go. Torque is running back, and look at the speed dropping. That's dropping rather significantly there, isn't it? Alright, we've seen what we wanted to see. Let's bring the power back in. After all, we want to go fast and not fly along like a glider. So we're entering the 17 DME arc over here from the airport. And after that, we are already going to start our approach. Might as well increase the vertical speed a little bit. We can see right now we've got vertical speed required of 2,700 feet a minute. However, that is going to come back again as we are getting lower and therefore losing a little bit of the true airspeed factor here. Keep in mind, while we're showing 230 indicated, we're flying over 100 knots faster in terms of true airspeed, and obviously increased true airspeed means increased vertical speed required. Might as well just follow this or not follow this. You gotta make your own experience there on what you prefer the most. Personally, I usually keep it just about at 2,000 feet a minute, and you can see now it's already 2,500 feet a minute vertical speed required, and that is going to become even less as we're descending into the lower air and reducing our true airspeed. Let's go back 2,000, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, in the meantime, dear Flight Simulator, give me the latest weather, please. Let's get that METAR, and we've got... Where is Bolzano? Not in the list. Lovely. Here it is. Alright, so it's wind variable 2 knots, 10 kilometers visibility, few clouds in 5,000, 19 degrees, 1017. Right, that 1017 over here, seeing that we are going to start the approach soon, let's go ahead and set our altimeters to that. 1017 set left and 1017 set on the right. Very good. Speed, I'm going to maintain at 230 for now, and then once we're approaching Fora, I'm going to reduce the airspeed to something reasonable for the actual approach itself. In the meantime, look at how lovely the airplane flies on the DME arc over here, or on the radius to fix leg, I should say. Basically turns out to be about the same, but you can see it over here, 26 DME arc from Oscar Zulu Echo, which is the local DME at Bolzano Airport. Look at how lovely it's flying that, perfectly spot on. I wish certain other aircraft were able to do that as well, but I suppose we're not going to get into that discussion right now. Alright, so quick look as to how our cabin altitude is doing. Altitude is at 6,000 now, differential pressure decreasing, and if we think through the entire approach, then let's see, we're doing 600 feet a minute here. That means 10 minutes in order to lose all of that altitude. Well, we need about 10 minutes to lose all of that altitude at 2,000 feet a minute over here as well. So I tend to say we are running nicely on the cabin and don't need to do anything about that. If we needed to, we could always increase the cabin vertical speed to 1,000 feet a minute. Or what we could do as well is just to keep it come down slowly, and when our actual altitude equals our cabin altitude, we may just dump it. However, that is like a very, let's just say it that way, that is not the most elegant solution that you can possibly come up with to handle your cabin altitude. And I'm sure you will understand why, seeing that afterwards you're limited to 1,000 feet a minute vertical speed, and hey, you've got a pressure cabin, so might as well use it. Okay, entering an area with a couple of clouds here. Let's see what the temperature is. It's -8 degrees now, so might as well turn on some of the anti-ice as we're flying through this, or at least we'll turn it on when we're actually getting close to this, which isn't too far off, so tell you what, let's turn that thing on. Also, we're going to turn on the landing lights and the pulse lights so that we increase our visibility. I really like it, by the way, that you can see when each of those lights is actually illuminated down here in the TBM. Really cool thing, if you ask me. So, turning on to our final approach course towards Fora, and we've got a vertical speed required of like 2,300 now. Let's wait what that looks like by the time the waypoints are switching over here. So 10 more seconds to go, and then we'll see what the vertical speed required is, and then we are just going to fly that in order to make sure we reach our target altitude of 10,000 at Fora. But as you can see, basically maintaining 2,000 feet a minute, even though our true airspeed is increasing a little bit in the descent, therefore increasing the vertical speed required, is normally working quite well. Okay, waypoints have shifted. Looks like for the last part of the descent we need to increase rate of descent a little bit here. Let's go 3,000 feet a minute. Like 5 or 6 degrees pitch down over here. Not the most comfortable for the passengers, but seeing that we're just 2 people in the plane today, that is totally fine. At the real Locher airfield, the gentleman owning the field owns a PC-12, which got quite a similar performance to our TBM850 over here, so if we just take it that we're flying something like that, then we can say that we are actually coming in quite in a realistic manner over here. Alright, going to overfly Fora, then we're going to intercept the vertical path of the approach, and eventually going to continue all the way in towards Bolzano. 10,000 feet selected, altitude alerter, this certainly is. We can positively identify that now. And once we're approaching Fora and overfly that, we should switch to the RNAV approach modes on the TBM over here. Or at least we should, seeing that this is an RNAV approach, but looks like we aren't, so let's just about help ourselves here then. You can give me 2,000 feet a minute, VS required 1,800 now, but I just want to make sure that we're actually intercepting the profile. And going over here, let's go procedure and activate approach. Right, that approach is activated now. Looks like we'll be reaching 7,000 just prior to the 912 waypoint. And that is actually all we need. Okay, so let's get out that approach chart. We want that vertical profile just over here. Zoomed in pretty much as we can. So from Fora, we need 7,000 feet at waypoint 912. Have a table somewhere for anything in between? Only from 6 miles, okay. Fair enough, we can work on that. So we start with 7,000 feet right now. 3 more miles to run, let's reduce our vertical speed a little bit, 1,500 feet a minute maybe. Our speed is looking just about fine over here at 190. What's the cabin altitude doing? It's at 3,000 right now, so it just needs 2 more minutes till it has reached the field elevation of Locher. 2 miles to run. Let's reduce the VS a little bit more. Okay, our next altitude then is going to be 5,600 over a distance of 3.6 miles, so that's going to be a little bit steeper than usual. So maybe something in the region of about 1,300 or so. Okay, here we go. And here is our on-off approach. Very good. So, approach mode is armed. So it took the intermediate fix to activate the on-off approach guidance. That is totally fine for me. A little bit more power, let's keep the speed. Everything in here looks good, as it should, so let's go back to the charts. Here we go. Okay, so on the vertical profile now, and we can set this one down to our target for the flight over to Locha, which is going to be 3,000. So, where is our field, Bolzano? I do believe it is the one over there. So we are coming in fine on our vertical track and on the angle. Let's keep vertical speed a little bit more reduced, like 180 or so. Okay, getting that down now. Okay, so 2 more miles to run until that should be a 914 then. Let's have a quick look. Yep, 914 is our approach, is our next waypoint, and over there we should be in 4,500. Okay, overflying 914, and we are pretty much on profile. Alright, so all of this is looking quite good. I tell you what, we are completely VMC. Let's go autopilot disconnect. Flight director off. Approach mode off. Like that, and we're going to maintain 4,000 initially for a flight over towards Locha. So on the GPS we go direct to flight plan, the very end, direct to Locha, activate, straight at 15 miles. So we just gotta pick the correct valley to go into now, but I can already tell you it's the one that's straight ahead from us, straight ahead from this approach. And with this, our IFR is cancelled, so let's go squawk VFR. There you go, 7,000. Cabin altitude is down to 2,000, that's perfect. So now it's just us and the airplane. And that little VFR leg over there into the valley. Let's have a very quick look outside, because this is really a beautiful area to fly through. This just looks stunning, doesn't it? Really like it. I really like it. So, let's say hello for a nice screenshot. And here we go. Okay then, back to the cockpit. Overall, flying is what this all is about. So climbed a little bit throughout that little maneuver. Let's go back down to 4,000. And then going down into the valley, we can actually go down to 3,000. And this is where things are about to get interesting. Can start reducing our speed. We don't want more than 180 knots entering the valley. Lovely reflections on the glass covering the instruments here, by the way, isn't it? Black Square have really done a great job on the external and internal model of the TBM. Okay, so entering the valley. Gonna maintain 3000 at first. Our speed can slowly come down. 180 knots looks good for now, but we don't want to go any faster than that. For the rest of it, since things are gonna get busy in a few moments, the lights are on already. I'm gonna switch the taxi light on over here, even though that's only gonna come on when the landing gear is lowered, but that is fine.
Terrain ahead. Terrain ahead.
Yep, inhibit TORS. It doesn't know about our approach path, so obviously it is going to warn us. Alright, so down here we don't need the windshield anti-ice no more. I'm going to turn on the inertial separator to reduce possible damage or bird strike. The cabin altitude is down and we are on Squawk VFR. That looks alright to me. Alright, looks like we are all prepared for the approach. And now it's just about actually getting that thing done right. Okay, inertial separator is on. Losing a little bit of speed here as our torque has decreased a bit and I didn't correct for it by increasing power. Let's turn the yaw damper off already. Okay then. Out of the 850 mode and flaps take off. Landing gear down. So we gotta watch out for the power cables now that are crossing the valley. Those are gonna come over there, I believe. Just make sure we don't accidentally fly into them.
500.
Okay, continue the descent. We're gonna disregard those radio altimeter callouts. You can see how it's going all over the place as we're flying over the valley over here. Okay, speed is good. Flaps landing. And here we go. Okay then, that's the first set of power cables coming into view over there. Gonna go below them. Here we go. Power cables coming. And we are well below them. So, second set of power cables coming right in the front over there. Let's increase power. We need to go above these. There they come. Okay, power idle. Don't float for too long. Here we go. Alright, we made it. Was tight, but we made it. Very cool. So, lights can come off. And then the flaps are coming up. Inertial separator sure as hell is gonna stay on. And that's about it. Transponder will switch off. This is private field anyway, so no ATC out here. Alright. So now comes the biggest challenge of all. Getting that thing down to the hangar and park it down there. Now this is something I didn't practice prior to the stream. You guys know I did a couple approaches at Loch already because I featured that in an earlier video. But this taxi now is something that I've actually never practiced before. Yes, that does tell you something about how I did record the previous video. Alright, so I'm gonna keep the speed low. I'm standing on the brake constantly right now. Okay. So that's the road we're looking for. Wonder how that's gonna work. I really never tried this, so I really hope going down such a significant slope here is gonna work out in the sim. If we are being thrown to somewhere, then that might happen as well. But then at least you know now why. Okay, a little bit of power to make it all the way up here. Most importantly, not to roll backwards. Okay, well that's interesting. That taxiway here surely looked better in earlier versions. Yeah, that taxiway did look a lot better in earlier versions of Lochau Airfield. Well, we might be thrown down here a bit. Just disregard what's happening right now. But here we are. Alright, made it down. Oh boy. Alright, and down here is our hangar. Oh, that taxiway there might need a little improvement with a future update. I sure hope that that's gonna happen one day. Alright, anyway, we made it. So, welcome to Lochau Airfield, ladies and gentlemen. I surely hope that you enjoyed this one. Do let me know what you think about the latest TBM update, as I'm sure there will be a lot of comments to be made on that one. And I am very much looking forward to hear your feedback. So, let's shut the thing down. Like so. Okay, that does look about good enough to me. We've had the engine running for at least 15 seconds now, so let's go ahead and shut that one off. Here we go, engine shutting down, and with that we made it to our destination. So how do I like the TBM850 then? Well, I do believe this is a very good update. The flight model felt pretty good, and the new features like the chocks, for example, are quite nice to have as well. Also, listen to the sounds as our engine is still running down over here. Listen to that propeller sound. I always like it when these kind of things happen in the flight simulation, because it shows that the developer is putting some work into areas that normally you're never supposed to hear, but it's nice to see this kind of work being put into it, isn't it? Alright then, gonna shut that stuff down, gonna shut that stuff down, and with that our flight is done. Thank you very much everyone, and do let me know how you like that TBM. I'm gonna put my chocks in place now, here they are, and with that we can release our park and brake and head out to our well-deserved after landing drinks. So thank you everyone, and I see you all again on the next one. Be sure to hit that like button if you did indeed like the video, and leave a comment to let me know what you think about it. And finally, if you really like what I'm doing, why not subscribe to the channel, as it will give you earliest notification of new videos. If you really like what I'm doing, and only if you really like it, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below, or to see you as a channel member, giving you early access to new videos before they're released for everyone else. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again on the next one.